It was on the day of Halloween 2020. When no one knew that it will bring mystery to the family and friends. Livy Lewis was found draped over the steering wheel of her car, dead from a rifle shot to her neck. It happened in Hemphill, a small town in Texas with a population of just over 1,000. It's the kind of place where no one is a stranger, and the news went viral all the city. Darcy Bass, Livy Lewis's mother, heard the news when one of friends told her that Livy has been shot. When she heard this, she said, "I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I want to see my child. Oh, my God." Livy was a young woman who was just turning 19. She was a student and a recent graduate from high school with a scholarship to a local university. According to her mother, Darcy Bass, Livy had a dream of going to the university, become a nurse, and later become a physician's assistant. During this time, Livy was already a certified assistant nurse at a local clinic home. While working at a local clinic as an assistant, Livy Lewis was loved by the residents. She made friends. Taylor Barnett was one of her best friends she made there. She started staying with Taylor Barnett all the time. Livy Lewis was a person that wanted stability and didn't want to play, like, the child games. She was ready to be grown up. That's probably why Livy fell for an older man, Matthew Edgar, who was 23 when they met. Livy was still a senior in high school when she and Edgar Matthews began a secret relationship. Edgar was married to Montana Bockel, the mother of his 2 young sons. The research from a phone records shows that Livy and Edgar began texting to each other in November 2019, when Edgar wrote, "You do know you cannot say a word to anybody that we are even texting." Livy replied, "Well, probably, I'm not gonna brag about texting a married man, but thanks for the clarification." It is obvious that after a couple of months of having a secret affair with a married man, Livy Lewis quickly and strongly ended the relationship. But it seemed like Edgar wasn't done. After 4 months later, he texted to complain about how unhappy he was in his marriage. "I cheated again," he said. But Livy held her ground. "I'm not really down for being a housebreaker," she wrote. About 2 months later, Matthews Edgar ended his marriage in this text exchange with his wife where he said, "Ain't you, it's me. Me always cheating on you." 4 days later, Montana, Edgar's wife, hired a divorce attorney, and their relationship was over. Edgar moved out and went back to Livy Lewis. Livy Lewis was now getting into a relationship with a woman who had 2 young sons, and is soon to be an ex-wife. It happened all of a sudden. In the beginning, they didn't get along. Livy and Montana didn't. It appeared to be out of jealousy on Montana's behalf. Montana wanted to be Livy's best friend, and they talked all the time. It seems to be dangerous friendship, because some people would want to get close, and aim to destroy. Livy Lewis was warned to stay away from Montana. Yes, it's quite alright that she can get along with her for their children, but don't be too close with her. I mean, because that's his ex-wife. As time went by, it was Edgar's behavior that became tragic. It was obvious that at this point, Edgar was too abusive. Sometimes, he would come home very drunk and crazy. It got so bad that Taylor, a best friend of Livy Lewis, didn't want Edgar close to her home. Investigations from a phone records indicates that the relationship was not good anymore. At times when Edgar sent messages to Livy like, "Good night baby, I love you," Livy's replies alleged physical abuse. "Why you keep putting your hands on me like that? My body hurts today." It seemed like Livy was in love with who Edgar Matthews could be, cause she knew who he was and knew that what he was doing to her wasn't right, yet she still stayed. Livy Lewis had been planning on going to her new college campus, but in the early summer of 2020 she stayed, agreeing to move in with Edgar and help take good care of him and his sons. It was in the early August of 2020, Livy Lewis writes to Edgar, "I want to be in our home with you, but I can't do the way you act when you are drunk. I'm scared of you. You've laid your hands on me multiple times. I deserve better than that." On October 4, 2020, Livy's birthday, Edgar texted Montana, his ex-wife, "I didn't cheat on Livy with multiple women. Just you." Livy later broke up with Edgar, but in a small town like Hemphill you can break up, but you can't really hide. In the early morning hours of Halloween 2020, Edgar and Livy would ended up together again, on the side of the road. The same morning when Livy Lewis was killed, her ex-boyfriend Edgar found himself in a hospital bed, saying that he had no idea how he got in the hospital. Edgar was found inside the vehicle full of blood all over his face. Despite the blood on his face, Edgar wasn't injured. He just admitted that he was drinking earlier that night. Edgar was found in a vehicle that was in front of another vehicle where the deceased body was discovered. Still he refused, saying, the last time he saw Livy Lewis was at a party the night before at his friend Bobby Ozan's house. That's when he claims he last saw Livy. Edgar Matthews still saying, he had no clue how he found himself in the hospital bed. He said, I left my friend's house back home, and I left Livy Lewis, an ex-wife at the party. After some investigations, Edgar was arrested as a first suspect. It is because he was found behind the vehicle where the decedent was, and there was some kind of relationship between him and the deceased person. There is a rifle laying on the ground behind the vehicle close to where he was found. Based on that information and a few other things, Edgar Matthews was placed into a custody. After Edgar was jailed, the case was on a legal deadline. According to Texas law, the district attorney's office now had 90 days to present enough evidence to a grand jury to indict Edgar, or they would have to release him on bond. The police officer with the help of the Texas Rangers began piecing together what happened to Livy Lewis. Cindy Hogan, Edgar's mother, believes that someone else killed Livy, not Edgar, because he loves her so much. Earlier that night, when the party was winding down, Montana told the investigators that Livy Lewis said she's gonna stay with Bobby the whole night. And that's why Edgar was mad about it. According to Montana, Edgar was very angry. He started kicking Livy's car doors and tried to break the windows. At this point, it was Bobby who was helping the girls to leave the party. Bobby said, every time when he tried holding him, he's screaming, I'm gonna kill you all. I'm gonna kill you all. After all this, Montana and Livy Lewis left in a separate vehicles. For security reasons, Montana went to Edgar's mother and grandparent to spend a night there. While at Edgar's mother, she started texting him. He said, you knew what was going on. He continued to say, I will take your life, her, and his life, mark my words. Around 3:22 a.m. in the morning, Edgar texted Montana, his ex-wife, I'm leaving, better get here and get your kids. At this point, it seemed like that was the time that angry Edgar went to look for Livy Lewis. After 12 minutes from the time he texted, I'm leaving, Edgar texted again, I'm home. I got Livy's keys and her phone. Montana asked, where is she? Edgar replied, dead. Montana didn't know if Edgar was true or false for killing Livy. So she didn't struggle to call the police, instead she fell asleep. Friends and family blamed Montana for not calling the 911 after receiving all those messages from Edgar. Investigators tried to find out if Montana had been to the crime scene helping Edgar cover up Livy's murder. After a period of 2 months later, Montana was given a polygraph test. But after deep investigations, investigators inferred that Montana had not been at the crime scene, and that she has nothing to do with Livy's shooting or death. In the early February 2021, the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the courts and this case. Without grand juries being called together, a judge was immediately told by the law to release a still unindicted Matthew Edgar on a reasonable bond of $50,000. In January 2022, when the trial of Edgar Matthews approaches, Darcy Bass was confident that the evidence, such as like when he texted Montana that he got her phone and keys and that she's dead. All these words are a proof in this murder of her daughter, Livy, and this will finally prove that Matthew had killed her. On the first day of testimony, the state began presenting its case, which included DNA results that assessed a tiny speck of Livy's blood on the pants Edgar was wearing when he was found at the crime scene. But Edgar's court-appointed defense attorney, Rob Hughes, argued that a tiny drop of blood doesn't prove a thing. And all that blood on Edgar's face that was tested wasn't for both Livy's or Edgar's, and once they were excluded, investigators didn't pursue other matches. The day of Edgar Matthews' case was approaching, next day in the morning as Rob Hughes arrived at the courthouse. He received a call from Edgar's mother, who told him that Edgar has run away with a gun. She was scared maybe Edgar may kill himself. Darcy Bass, Livy Lewis's mother, heard about the escaping of Edgar. She was shocked. Oh, are you serious? Like he's gone? How can that happen? He shouldn't be on bond. She said. What happened with the ankle monitor on? Edgar had an ankle monitor on which could track his location and movements. Unfortunately, it was said that Edgar Matthews was just waiting for the battery on his ankle monitor to die, and run away. Everyone was shocked about Edgar's act of escaping while on bond. This act shows that he was guilty, and he knew what he was doing. Darcy Bass tried by all means to look for Edgar, but she wasn't alone. McDonough had been joined by Jeff Coulter, a special deputy with the Eastern District U.S. Marshal Service, and they were on the hunt for Edgar. The very spot where 19-year-old Livy Lewis was murdered is now a memorial lovingly tended to by her mother. "I'll just want everyone to remember what happened here," she said. There was rumors that Edgar's mother had been seen buying her son's favorite cigarettes and liquor in large quantities. 1 week after Edgar ran from the law, Jeff Coulter, a special deputy with the U.S. Marshal Service, took over the manhunt. 2 days later, the law enforcement went directly into Edgar's mother to look for him. It was around 8 p.m. in the evening when Edgar was found hiding in his mother's home. Without further ado, Edgar was arrested, and found guilty of murder. On January 3, 2023, Matthew Edgar was formally sentenced for the murder of Livy Lewis, 99 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving 30 years. Meanwhile, his mother was found guilty of hindering apprehension, which is awaiting trial. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video. Hamdex's updates.